Hello Aries and welcome to your reading. This is Bright Soul Collective Tarot. My name is Laura and these will be your intuitive insights and advice for the month of June 2022. So this reading will be for Aries Sun, Moon, and Rising. And granted, if you know your Sun, Moon, and Rising signs, feel free to check out any and all readings that apply to you as they may resonate differently. And also keep in mind, as always, that these readings are general in nature. They're meant to apply to a kind of broad collective of individuals. So there are a number of details that will come through that won't necessarily apply to you. So I highly recommend you take anything and everything that does resonate, however it makes sense to you. Keep an open mind to anything that might be helpful to you, and you can simply leave the rest. So Aries, I hope you're doing well. I hope that May treated you well. I am super excited to pull some cards for you and see what kind of energy might lie ahead in the month of June. I can't believe it's June already, to be honest. That means I've been reading for you guys for 6 months already. So whether this is your first time here or whether you're returning, thank you so much for being here and kind of sharing this time and space with me. It's been really fun doing this for you guys, and I look forward to continuing to do it. So yeah, I've got your oracle cards here. We'll pull some tarot, and as always, I will begin with your channeled messages because I sat down and took some time to connect with your energy and see what came through before I got any cards out for you guys. So I'll share that with you first, but yeah, I'm very excited and hopefully we can connect you with some good, empowering information that'll have you feeling ready to make the absolute most of the month ahead. So Aries, as I was kind of getting ready to channel your messages, I'll just kind of give you an idea of the impression that I got in relation to your energy. This may apply for you, it may not, or even potentially to like varying degrees. But the first thing that kept popping into my head was the word exasperated. So feeling exasperated, it might be a specific person or situation. It might be multiple things. It might be with yourself or the things that you're personally trying to work on. But there was definitely a sense of like just kind of being tired of like running into the same old problem, dealing with the same old thing. It's kind of like this tired old story or this tired old energy. It's like stuff that should, maybe the types of things that you feel like, shouldn't be happening anymore. Either like in your personal development or in your relationships or whatever. So there's kind of a sense of just like being a little bit over it. It wasn't like a really frustrated or negative sense of exasperation. It's more just kind of like when you get to the point where it's like you almost have to surrender, like kind of throwing your hands up and just being like, ugh, like I can't deal with this anymore, right? Not like, yeah, a sense of being ready for things to kind of like change or shift. The other thing that came through was a sense that like butterflies might be significant. I don't know, maybe you have a connection to butterflies. Maybe butterflies is something specifically that you look out for. Maybe you relate that to a specific person. So that might be something to watch out for this month, if that makes sense for you. And the other thing that came up before I was like channeling your messages was gossip. So I don't know if gossip is something that like surrounds you regularly. It could be in the workplace, it could be with friends, but if you're finding that there's a lot of gossip going on or you're being dragged into a lot of gossip, I would just take a moment to evaluate how that makes you feel, if you resonate with what's being said, and if it's a good outlet for you, because it's like it could just be venting or other people venting, and it's like it might get to the point where it's like it goes from venting to gossip, and maybe like that could be interfering with like your energy or how you feel about yourself, or it could be other people gossiping about you. I don't know, however that might make sense for you, but just yeah, something to keep in mind. So yeah, in combination with this kind of sense of being a little bit exasperated, otherwise your energy was really interesting because I was thinking that I was having a difficult time connecting with it initially, and then I realized that it just felt very neutral and kind of removed. And I don't mean removed in like a defensive way where you've kind of like got your walls up and you're not letting anyone in, but I feel it was kind of more in an empowered way, like maybe being a little bit more selective about who you're sharing your time and space and energy with, and kind of like taking a step back, removing yourself from situations and kind of just observing the way that other people are operating and acting, and from a neutral place. So like I said, it's not out of a place of like emotion. It's kind of like an empowered place where it's like you might very well be coming into this month looking to see how things go and like what people have to show you, and it's kind of like letting the chips fall where they may. I don't know, it's very interesting. But yeah, so you might be being more selective, maybe not volunteering as much of your time or energy, maybe just kind of being in more of a receptive state and seeing what people are going to show you, or letting other people take the lead on certain things. And then as I was preparing to channel your messages specifically, and I was doing my kind of like little grounding meditation, it kind of occurred to me that it's very possible that the things that are good for you, and when I say good for you, I mean things like, you know, taking time for yourself, reflection, personal development, maybe meditation, breath work. This would be anything that causes you to just kind of like slow down, disconnect from all of the noise around you, and kind of focus a little bit more inward on your internal landscape. I kind of got the sense that like that might be difficult for you, or it might be something that you're really trying to do more of, and you feel like you're not doing a good enough job, if that makes sense. So the sense that I got is like, for example, if you're trying to meditate to help like calm your mind and improve your overall sense of like well-being, and maybe there are specific things that you're looking to like work through or heal or process, and I get the sense that it's like if it feels like a difficult and it doesn't come easily to you, and it's like, oh, I can't shut my mind off, or I'm always thinking, it's like kind of judging yourself, and maybe shutting yourself off from that practice before you're really able to truly get anything out of it, because it's like you almost shut yourself down, like I'm not good at this. And I think I would say, like, if you are experiencing that, that is simply part of the process, right? Part of the process is acknowledging those thoughts and acknowledging those judgments that we tend to make, because working through that self-judgment is actually part of like the meditative process, and learning how to kind of connect with yourself on that level. So I would say if you are experiencing that, that just means you're human, and that's probably just a good indication that what you're doing is working, because you're starting to come to these realizations. So yeah, I would just say, like, keep at it, be gentle with yourself, give yourself the chance, especially if you feel like it's difficult for you to focus and you feel like you want to give up on those things that could potentially be beneficial to you. I would just say, like, do your best to stick with it, because you know that's part of the process, and as much as it can feel discouraging, it's like a sign that, you know, you're doing it for the right reasons, and it'll help you work through that ultimately in the end. It's just kind of just have to stay the course, right? So for your channeled messages, the first one that came through was magnetic attraction, and it was kind of the sense of like, you know, when you are around specific people. So I guess the people who are your people, you know, the people that you feel most drawn to, that are kind of like kindred spirits that you really enjoy time around. It's like you might go through, you know, periods of separation, you know, life takes you apart and brings you back together, maybe situations that are out of your control, but it's like ultimately you kind of do have that magnetic attraction, and inevitably, like, once you come within a certain distance of each other, you're gonna be, you know, magnetically attracted back. Like, there's nothing that can really stand in the way of that. It's almost an inevitability. And it's just paying attention, I guess. And this could even be people that maybe you don't necessarily have much of a relationship or a connection to, that kind of keep gravitating back around to you. It might be something for you to keep in mind if you're noticing patterns with specific people. There might be people on the outskirts that are looking to connect with you or build friendships with you. It could be a friend that you have, you have that magnetic attraction with, that you've been separated from some time, and the world is, keeping you close or bringing you back together. However that makes sense for you, but that might be a theme for you this month. The next message that came through is organizational intelligence, and it's the sense of like having a real knack for organization, planning, structure, right? Like seeing how things work, seeing where like problems are, what the effective solution would be, being able to make the most of your resources, making smart decisions, improving efficiency. And so it's like, if you have a knack for that, like it could just be that you have that inclination, right? It's a form of intelligence, specifically that not everybody has, right? And so it's like, especially if you're working in large structures or large organizations, even on a small scale, and it doesn't even have to be within an organization, but it can also be, with friends or family, any kind of like structure or group of individuals, you might have a really good sense of like where energy is being wasted or time is being wasted, where there are needs that are not being met, maybe where resources need to be shuffled around or more attention needs to be applied. And it can be really difficult if you see this and it's very obvious to you, but it's out of your control, right? So it's like, you might be somebody that if you were in a position to affect the organizational structure, you could have a really beneficial impact. But when you have that insight and you don't necessarily have the ability to make changes, or perhaps the individuals who have that power don't necessarily see the value in what you're trying to say, it can be really frustrating. So I would just know, like, if that resonates for you, it might not be that you are meant to change whatever it is. Specifically, if you've got like frustration with some kind of organizational structure, and you can see room for development. So your purpose may not actually be to impact that or to improve it, but it might just be the opportunity for you to recognize that that very much is a skill and a natural inclination that you have. And perhaps you need to find an avenue or an outlet that will allow you to make use of that energy, so that you're not hitting your head against the wall, trying to apply your insight to situations that you're not able to change, right? So it's kind of like, if you have that skill and that ability, find an outlet for it. Find somebody who's looking for that. Like, you might even be able to like freelance in terms of like consulting people, or maybe people are looking for your for input, and it's just a matter of voicing what you see. I don't know, but it's kind of like an ability to see where all of the pieces fit and kind of like put the puzzle together properly. The next message that came through was Master of Disguise. And so this could be either way. Like, I didn't really get a clear sense of whether this applies to you specifically, or it could apply to somebody in your circle, somebody that you're in contact with in one way or another. But the thing that did come to mind with this Master of Disguise is that, being flexible and adaptable, being able to read people and meet them on their level is a really great skill, right? Like, kind of being able to blend in and fit in wherever. It's a great skill to have, especially, in business and in friendship and so on. And so it's recognizing that while it can be great to just do what you need to do to fit in and to be liked and accepted wherever you go, that can also be a major block, because it can also stand in the way with, connecting to yourself and embracing your authenticity and expressing yourself as you are. So, while it can feel helpful in certain situations, I think in like the long term and anything that's meant to be deep and meaningful, it can actually kind of stand in the way, because if you're trying to fit in and pacify other people as opposed to really expressing yourself as you are, you're not putting out who you are, and you're not able to attract the people who are kind of on that same level or looking for that, like in a friendship, for example. So it's kind of like recognizing that there's a time and place to like be cordial and just fit in, and then otherwise, like, you want to be embracing who you are and showing other people that, so that you can draw in the very people that are are going to be most beneficial for you to be spending your time with. So it's like, don't sell yourself short thinking that you always have to fit in, because if you step into your true authenticity, granted, there may be people who don't like you, there may be people that you rub the wrong way, there may be individuals that are in your circle or that you kind of know now that don't want anything to do with you, but ultimately, like, you kind of have to go through that like cleaning house to bring in the people who are going to connect with you. So yeah, not allowing that sense of like fitting in and wanting to belong, which I think is natural, and we all need that, to hinder your self-expression. So it's like finding the right balance for you, if that's something that makes sense. The next thing that came through was Fantastic Four, which is like a superhero movie. To be honest, I don't really know too much about it. I know that like it's kind of like 4 superheroes and each one has a different ability, kind of like an X-Men type of vibe. But yeah, so they all have a different ability and they all kind of work together. So it's like a sense of, you know, being different, but also connecting for like the same cause, and having kind of like a harmonious group despite differences, and you know, people having different skills or coming from different backgrounds. So yeah, I'm not sure how that might apply. Maybe it's just the movie itself you have a connection to, I don't know. The next thing that came through was really interesting. So it was biblical prophecy. And to be quite honest with you, I didn't really know how to take that at first, just because I don't have a huge amount of background with anything biblical. So this could be a connection to somebody who's particularly religious, or maybe has a background or a serious belief in the Bible, like, organized religion, prophecy, and stuff like that. But I did a little bit of reading. And so it's like a biblical prophecy is essentially the idea that God is communicating with humans via prophets. And like quite often there will be, revelations or like predictions, and it's kind of like, it can be like a warning, or it can be like an opportunity for learning or something that needs to be done. And so, but the more that I kind of sat with this energy, the more it kind of felt like I found prophecy is one thing, but biblical prophecy is another. And it kind of gave me the impression there might be either someone, or maybe you're doing it to yourself, but there might be a certain amount of like gatekeeping around spirituality, or connecting to intuition, receiving insight or advice from like a spiritual place, I guess. So I feel like the thing that stood out to me is that it's like, the idea that, so for organized religions, it's kind of like the idea that the only way that God can communicate with humans is through like a special prophet, right? And it's kind of like, you can't have your own relationship with spirituality. You can't receive insights directly from like the source, kind of thing. And so it's the idea that like you need someone or something outside of you to validate you, to connect you with spirituality. And it could be particularly like with prophet, it could be particularly in like a psychic or predictive way. Like you need somebody to tell you how things are going to go, because you don't have the ability to connect to your intuition or to receive information yourself, right? So it might be something that you're interested in and you feel like it's just not a skill that you have, perhaps. So I would say, like, if that makes sense, if you're looking to expand like your spirituality and maybe start connecting more with your guides, connecting with your intuition and intuitive wisdom and insight, it's like, it's not something that somebody else can do for you. It's not something that you need to ask somebody else to do for you. Although you might have certain practitioners that are helpful. But ultimately, if it's something that you want to be able to start doing for yourself, it's knowing that you can. Like there's nothing keeping you from doing that. You don't need somebody else to do it for you. And then finally, the last message that came through was order of operations. So that immediately made me think of like math and, brackets, exponents, division, multiplication, all that, right? So it's kind of like, it could be math specifically, but it's kind of like the sense that there is a proper way to do things in order to get the right result. And it's like one of those things that it's like things have to be done in a specific order in order for that accurate result to be achieved. And it's like you might do all of those same steps, but in a different order, and you're not going to get the result. So this could be like an actual situation where there is a very specific recipe for success that needs to be followed, or it could be a fear that if you don't do things exactly perfectly in exactly the right order, you're not going to, get to where you want to be, or you're not going to achieve your goal. So however that applies to you, if that's something that you really limit yourself with in terms of like kind of perfection and having everything perfectly planned out and that being the only way that things can happen, then that might be something, especially if you feel like you need to enforce that for yourself and others, that might be something to maybe do a little bit of pondering or reflection on, and see if where that might be coming from, and if it's coming from a place of empowerment or fear. Or it might just be the sense of, specifically in a certain situation, there might be only one right way to get there. So you'll know if that makes sense for you, but it's funny because it can kind of go either way. So we'll get into your cards. Your first oracle card is Pillar of Light, and it says your vibration is rising. You are the oracle, which is kind of interesting. And then we've got Star Bathing. It says light body, crystal grid, transmission, activation. This is a really interesting card. Okay, so we'll start with Pillar of Light. So this kind of goes hand in hand with the idea that you have the ability to connect with yourself, your feelings, your experiences, your thoughts, your emotions, your intuition. You have the ability to kind of work through all of that and like kind of cancel out all of the noise and figure out like what is right for you and what your true north is, right? So it's like, it's recognizing that whatever it is that you're trying to do and whatever's most important to you, the answers are available to you at all times, but they're already within you. And not only are they within you, but you have the ability to receive wisdom and insight. Even like, so if you believe in like angels and spirit guides, and you believe that people can connect to those energies and receive information, it's understanding that it's not just other people. It's like everybody has the ability to do it. So it's not just for other people, and it's not just other people that can do it and they have to be the ones to kind of guide you. It's recognizing that that is an innate ability that you have. And especially if you're somebody like on a spiritual level or on an intuitive or being like sensitive and empathic, especially if you tend to put other people above you, like to put other people on a pedestal, either people who are practitioners in some way, or even in terms of like angels and spirit guides and like those higher vibrational energies that you would connect with if you believe in that. It's like putting them above you. So it's kind of like, why would they want to communicate with you? And it's like we're all programmed basically to have a connection to the divine, right? And to receive divine wisdom and intelligence. And that's part of our path, our destiny, our intuition, our soul's calling, right? That's why we're here, to learn our specific lessons and to, to have some kind of positive impact, right? To fulfill some kind of purpose. And that might look different for each and every one of us, but this is basically saying like you could very well be getting to the point where you're starting to be more inclined or more interested or more curious about developing your intuition, but you might still be very much putting yourself down in such a way that you don't necessarily believe that it's for you. And it's recognizing that you can't just judge yourself by the fact that you are here like a physical human on earth, because we're spiritual beings living a physical existence, right? So even though the concept of spirituality and energies and like, you know, if you've had the experience of like thinking of somebody and then they call you, and it's like that kind of like interesting, like a little bit psychic kind of energy, or even like signs and synchronicities and all that kind of stuff. So it's like even the stuff that isn't necessarily tangible, it's not necessarily rational or easy to explain. It's like it's still real, it's still there, and it's something that you can very much sense and connect to, whether you understand and you can like logically make sense of it or not. And so yeah, it's basically saying like the work that you've been doing on yourself is helping you. And this is also saying like this is a month that any work that you do in terms of your personal development, your spiritual development, healing, whatever that is for you, it's supported and it's going to be magnified, right? It's going to make a difference. And I think it's just important that you give yourself that opportunity instead of thinking that that it needs to come from outside of you. It's like it's an inside job. So when they say happiness is an inside job, you know, that goes for, you know, spirituality, connection to your intuition. There are people that can help you connect with yourself more deeply, but there's nobody that can tell you how to do it. There's nobody that can validate what's right or wrong. It's very much a personal journey and a personal connection, and it's meant to be. And so it's recognizing that that experience is going to look different and feel different for you. You might receive different wisdom and insight than other people, but it's trusting that if you take the time to connect and you believe that that's something that's available to you, you will be receiving what is important to you. And it's just most important that you do your own personal healing and kind of acknowledge and work through anything that might be standing in your way. Because yeah, it's kind of like we are meant to be the conduit, right? So it's like, for example, you know, if you think of that high vibrational energy as like, you know, love and kindness and compassion and understanding and doing good by other people, but also, you know, respecting yourself and setting boundaries, right? It's like the more that we connect with that energy and we anchor that down, like we are meant to take action on that. So we might receive that wisdom or that inspiration or that impulse, but we ultimately are the ones that take action on it. And we can be inspired by that and take action in such a way that it spreads that energy and impacts others in a positive way. So it's basically saying like, don't underestimate your power and your ability, because the work that you do on yourself to heal yourself, to connect more deeply with love and kindness and compassion, and the more that you're able to cultivate that for yourself and forgive yourself, the more you are able to kind of spread that energy through your actions just naturally. And it's encouraging and supportive for other people. So it's like, it's also allowing you to lead by example. So that's why we're here. So it's kind of like you're anchoring that in, and it's allowing you to change your experience, but also impact others as well. And actually, I'm going to get the book because there's an activation. But yeah, so it's kind of like you're a pillar, you're a bridge between like the divine and earth. And it might sound kind of pompous and it might sound kind of out there depending on where you're at, but it's basically like as you work on yourself and you raise your own vibration, inevitably you will raise the vibration of everyone and everything around you by sharing yourself with them. So it's like, that's what it means by you are the oracle, right? So it's like whatever is right for you on your path and whatever takes you more deeply into that like healed and higher vibrational energy is ultimately what's right for you, is going to be different than what's right for somebody else, but you can still have that same positive impact on people. And it's recognizing everybody's journey is different. So you can't look to somebody for like a step-by-step guide, and you also can't project your ideas or what works for you onto other people, right? So it's like, you know, accepting that you're a unique individual and you're where you're meant to be, right? So yeah, don't look for guidance outside of yourself because it's all within you. And you have the ability to like connect with it, right? So there's an activation. If it's something that you're interested in doing, I will read it for you. So I'll hold it up and it says, So it says hold the card on your heart and say, but I'll just say like take a look. If you want to do this, take a look at it and then repeat this. So it says, I allow the light of the heavens and the light of the earth to flow through me now. I activate the codes of remembering within my cells and chakras. I activate my system as a rainbow bridge between heaven and earth. And so it's kind of like also recognizing, like, for example, if you want to be seeing signs and synchronicities and you want to be receiving guidance from, you know, your spirit guides or your angels or whatever, it's like they can't just impact you. They can be around you, but they can't do anything that without your permission, right? So it's like if you want to connect to them, you have to ask, right? If there's something that you're looking to develop, you kind of have to ask for that support. You have to be willing to receive and to connect with it, right? So it's like just because they're out there doesn't mean that you can that's ultimately just going to be bestowed on you without you knowing, right? Or without you intending it. So it's kind of like the more intentional that you are about it, the more you're able to kind of claim that. I don't have as much to say about the star bathing card, to be honest with you, because this is from the Starseed Oracle and it's a little bit out there. Like some of the stuff, it's not necessarily like I'm just not there yet personally, but I will touch on it, and I'll say that if anything in particular resonates with you, it's definitely worth doing some research, perhaps like reading into it if it makes sense. So star bathing, light body, crystal grid, transmission, activation. So this is the idea that like, basically, so there's a concept that there's like a crystalline grid within the earth, right? And that is kind of like an energetic pathways. There are like vortexes. There are powerful spiritual areas that people go to and they connect with. And it's also part of like why crystals are considered to be healing, right? At the vibrations that they emanate and so on. So it's essentially saying like some people are able to connect to that crystalline grid or sense it. So it might be just a sense of like needing to go somewhere. There might be a specific place that you're drawn to. There might be somewhere that you visit that you feel particularly connected to, or that helps you connect more on a spiritual level. Because it's the idea that like connecting with that energy allows you to receive a higher level of insight. So it's almost like an amplification of like this pillar of light, for example. And so the idea that humans are helping to anchor this high vibrational energy onto the earth, similar, this is kind of like a similar concept, right? So it's like the idea that, you know, we're receiving wisdom and insight, and there's this energy, and then also the earth kind of like reflects back out. And so this is all about like connecting to that. So I would just, I would pay attention if there's a particular place that you really want to go, or that you feel really drawn to, or that maybe you perhaps visit quite often, and it seems to help you gain more clarity and insight in terms of your own spirituality, and helping you kind of like anchor down those I guess higher vibrational frequencies, like, you know, like being loving and kind and compassionate, doing your healing work, that kind of stuff. And it might also mean that like you're simply like you're just being activated in that sense, where maybe you're able to connect to it a little bit more deeply. Maybe you're paying attention to, you're receiving more signs and synchronicities. You're paying more attention to what your body and your intuition are telling you. I'm not sure how that makes sense to you, because it's a little obscure. For me. But yeah, so basically it says like, if this makes sense to you, you might be somebody who needs to connect to this crystal grid. So it might be worth researching, looking it up, and seeing if anything makes sense to you or resonates for you. And also you might want to do a star bathing like meditation. It could even just be like sitting under the stars, like under the night sky. So you might want to look up star bathing meditation. That might make sense for you. And there's an activation with this card as well. So you take a look at the card and say, I open myself up to receiving the wisdom of the crystalline grid beneath me. May the stars and the earth inform and heal me. And as they do, may it heal the earth too. So yeah, so it goes hand in hand with this idea that our function here as human beings is to connect more with spirituality and to bring more of that loving kind of energy down from the earth. So it's like if we think of the divine and divine energy as pure love and kindness and compassion and all of those good things that we really should be, embodying, it's acknowledging that the more that we connect to spirituality, the more that we connect with those energies, the more we will be changed by them and the more that we can kind of spread them to other people. And so I know that it sounds like really out there, but even if you just think about it like in terms of, sharing the love, right? The more that you are able to focus on yourself and do your healing, the more you have to share with other people. This is very much kind of giving me the impression that the reason that maybe I felt that your energy was a little bit withdrawn is perhaps it's needing to cut off from all of the noise of the people around you. So like emotions, actions, expectations, all of the things, like all of the noise that kind of keeps you from being able to really tune in and focus on yourself. Perhaps that's why you're stepping back a little bit, is maybe to have a little bit more time for reflection, a little bit more time to check in with yourself and see, what it is that you're working through. Maybe taking time for a spiritual practice, even if you're just meditating, or even if you believe in angels and spirit guides, like asking for help. Setting intentions about what it is that you're trying to achieve, what kind of support you're looking for, and so on. Because it seems like this might be a really, really good month for you to focus on that and to recognize that it's something that's within you, that you have the ability to connect with yourself. You don't need anyone else to do it for you. And also I would say with that, just be really mindful of people that are like preachy. Like there are people who will be mentors and who will be able to kind of like help you find your own way through your connection to spirituality. And there will be people that will be in spiritual like ego. So anybody who makes you feel like you have to rely on them or you have to do something in a specific way to achieve success, I would say is a red flag, right? So I think it's important that you know that you can do it for yourself and you're being encouraged to, essentially. So your first card for this month is the Devil. Your second card is the Star. Your third card is the Tower. This is really big energy. These are all major arcana already. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's get one more card. And your fourth card is the Ace of Pentacles. I'm just going to move these up because I'm going to be a little cramped for like space here. And on the bottom of the deck, you have the Four of Swords, which is really interesting because the Four of Swords is very much that kind of like withdrawn energy. So I'll get your clarifiers right now and then we'll read the cards. So first we'll clarify the Devil. So the Devil is clarified by the Five of Cups. And then we'll clarify the Star. Oops. My gosh, I just dropped a bunch, but the Sun is the one that came out to clarify the Star. All right, let's clarify the Tower. The Tower is clarified by the Eight of Swords. And finally, the Ace of Pentacles. That one was Very aggressive. Clarified by the Hermit. Interesting. Okay. And then at the bottom of the deck is the Seven of Cups. All right. So yeah, this is kind of interesting because first off, you've got five major arcana here technically between these, but just in the top row you've got 3 major arcana, and it's interesting because it goes 15, 17, and 16, which makes complete sense, and I'll fill you in. But essentially, like, it's kind of interesting because with the bottom of the deck, this is kind of like the underlying energy that's informing this month's kind of progression. And so the Four of Swords is very much a card of like taking a step back, rest and recuperation, like not being focused on action, not being focused on forward movement. You might be kind of disconnecting from people, talking less, going out less, really just turning inward. And it could be like physically, like taking a lot of time for rest, making sure that you're not overworking yourself, making sure you're not overscheduling, overcommitting. And this can also be taking time for like healing, right? So like emotional healing as well, because it comes after the Three of Swords, and the Three of Swords is a card of loss and heartbreak and, you know, sadness. There's a lot of pain there. And so it's kind of recognizing that when we go through things that are traumatic or challenging or upsetting, we need to take that time to kind of process, right? We might need to take time to grieve or to reflect. There might be things that we really need to work through and release so that we're not carrying that heaviness with us. And so this is what that energy is all about. So that could very much be why I felt that your energy was kind of removed. Maybe you don't have the same level of energy, resources, or like emotional fortitude to do what you usually do. And for this to come up with the Seven of Cups, it could be that you might have a lot of people, there might be a lot of demands on your time and your emotions. There might be a lot of people that you feel like are relying on you. Maybe there's some like codependence. People are looking to you to kind of like solve their problems or make you feel good about them. Or maybe you put pressure on yourself to be constantly, you know, solving people's problems or keeping them happy. But there's a definite sense of like having a lot going on and not necessarily knowing where to focus your energy. So it could be that there are just so many things competing for your time and energy, and none of those are necessarily helpful to you, that you kind of just need to cut yourself off from everything that's going on and focus on yourself first. You know, take care of yourself first to get to the point, because it's like you need to fill your own cup first, and you need to take care of yourself in order to be able to help other people. So yeah, there might be a lot of kind of stuff going on around you with people around you, and that might have been distracting you from dealing with your own stuff. And I feel like now you're coming into this time where it's like it's time for you to start dealing with your own stuff. And so you're being advised to come into this month being aware of, I don't want to say your weaknesses, but anything that you find like tempting, the things that you know are not good for you, the things that you know are not healthy, that don't serve you, that don't empower you. It could be bad habits, it could be addictions, it could be like manipulation, like either maybe you have manipulative tendencies to try and get your way, or perhaps you are a people pleaser and you're prone to being manipulated or used by other people. So it's like basically anything that would take away your personal power, anything that you feel so drawn into, so captivated by, so like tied by, that you don't have your personal power. So it's basically like you're suffering like a puppet on a string, and there's a sense of like, I don't have control over this, or I can't do anything about it. Like I'm at the mercy of my emotions, or I'm at the mercy of my addiction, or whatever. So it could be really trying to overcome it could become overcoming a relationship, a habit, a tendency, like a dependency on someone or something. So it's just recognizing how that energy might be showing up for you. The devil also has a lot to do with like who we feel bound to, what we feel bound to, and why. And so I would say it's really important to say, like, where are your priorities, right? So it's like, if you are feeling bound to all sorts of people and places and you've got all these expectations on you, it's like, but what about yourself? What about your self-care, your relationship to self, your personal development? Because that sets the tone for the type of life you're going to live. And if you're so busy bound to things that are outside of you that you can't prioritize yourself at any point in time, then, you know, you're actively participating in a dynamic that doesn't serve you. So it's like being aware of that and recognizing that the devil also is like a very powerful individual. It's not like a negative card necessarily, but it can be like the ways that we underestimate our inner strength or our power, right? And for that to come up with the 5 of Cups, it might be related to depression, right? It might be related to depression or some kind of emotional struggle, feeling as though you've had a major loss or a major disappointment. It could be having like resentment, focusing on all of the things that are wrong or all of the things that you don't like. And perhaps like maybe there are specific things that are disappointing or that haven't worked out in the past. And that has you kind of feeling hopeless looking toward the future. So it's like if all you've ever had, at least the way that you perceive it, is like darkness and sadness, then it's like it's very difficult to see the light and to connect with the opportunity for love and happiness and abundance. And so it's basically like anything that's weighing on you and keeping you in a place where you're feeling sad and low. And particularly if you're feeling as though you don't have the ability to change the dynamic into a happier and more abundant and fulfilling one, right? So it's kind of like you might have some healing to do, yeah, in terms of the places where it's, and this, the devil can also be very focused on control. So a lot of times if we like to have control over our life situations and the people around us and the way things go, and we like things to be like very neatly structured and organized and going to plan, a lot of the time that is us compensating for the fact that on the inside we feel like we don't have any control over our emotions or our circumstances or whatever. And so a lot of that just has to do with kind of whatever emotional experiences we've had, traumas, past conditioning. So there might be just some emotional stuff to work through, and it's recognizing that like you deserve to connect with love and hope. It's something that you can overcome, and that the idea of not having control is it's not necessarily true, right? And so your challenge is, interestingly enough, showing up as like being able to connect with hope. And this also has to do with healing, right? Having the inner strength necessary to basically like rally and say like, all of these difficult things have happened, or I've experienced these losses, or I have these hurts and these resentments. And it's being able to say like, yes, this has happened. Yes, I feel this way. That yes, this is difficult, but like I can and will overcome it. Right? And it's like, I'm going to do what I need to do to get through it. I'm going to do what I need to do to heal. If I need to connect with certain supports or resources, if I need to remove my energy from certain relationships or situations, it's maintaining the hope that even if things are feeling difficult now, and even if you feel as though you have a lot of work ahead of you to heal and move in a happier direction, that, you know, that you can, like, there is hope there. There is kind of like a light at the end of the tunnel. And not only is this a card of like healing, but it's kind of the sense of like being in this position. It's like, if you resonate with that, it's kind of like this is part of the big, the divine plan, because there's a sense that like coming to that conclusion and working through this struggle to do your healing and connect with hope is what is going to allow you to kind of connect with your destiny, to be able to start connecting to the things that are important to you, that you feel called to, and to start saying yes to yourself. And for the star to come up clarified by the sun is all of the things that are good, all of the things that are beautiful, that make you happy, right? So it's like, it could be the people, the places, the things that feel like, you know, sunshine on your face. It's joy and happiness, celebration. It can be like a youthful and playful energy. So like connecting with your inner child. just having fun, letting yourself play, right? Letting yourself enjoy. And there's no limit, right? And it's also the idea that like the sun touches everything, right? Indiscriminately, right? So it's not like if you're having a bad day or someone does something wrong, like the sun is not going to just not shine on them, right? And so it's also connecting with a level of joy and happiness that like it's not, it's kind of like also unconditional love, right? So it's being able to recognize there might be people that you don't like or that you don't get along with, but you can get to a point where you don't have to allow your light to be stifled by the people that you don't like, right? And so it's kind of like once you get into this energy, once you connect with this energy, there's no limit to what it can impact and how positively it can impact. So you might be really focused on the fact that maybe things have been difficult or maybe you haven't been feeling quite happy or fulfilled. And this month might be a major challenge in terms of figuring out what kind of healing you need to do about your ideas about your worth, your ideas about happiness, your ideas about what is possible in your life. And like kind of like holding on to that tether to like something better, like that this is the sense that there's something bigger, there's something better, there's more out there for you, and even if you can't particularly see it or understand it or know what it looks like, that's why we have to kind of have that inner strength to do our healing and have faith that things will get better, right? And the sun here is like proof of that. So yeah, part of your healing and reflection might have to do, and like part of the challenges and the things that are triggering for you this month might have to do with your personal healing and your ideas about happiness, your ideas about yourself, your connection to your destiny and the things that are fulfilling to you. And the interesting thing is the energy that you're being advised to connect with in order to overcome this, it's like you're skipping a step here, right? So it's like we've got the devil, and then the next card, 16, is the tower. The tower is a crumbling down of something, right? It can be a loss, like a loss of a person, a relationship, a job, a house. It can be financial loss. It tends to be something that really, it's like a major shakeup, a major shift, a major change that has a large impact on your life, either the way you live your life, the way that you perceive yourself and others. And it doesn't have to be necessarily a physical loss if that doesn't make sense to you, but it can also be just like a massive shift in perspective. Maybe you have a moment of clarity. Maybe doing your reflection, you come to a realization like, oh my gosh, I've been the cause of my own problems all along. And all of these years, I thought this was my problem. And really it's just because I believed something that's not true. Right? And so it's like that spark of enlightenment takes this whole tower that you've built, that you've based your life on, and says, that's not real. That doesn't exist anymore. You can't use that. And you have to kind of like, the idea is that the tower is raised to its foundation and you have to rebuild. So it's like you have to process the loss and what that means. And that can mean like receiving new information and having to figure out like, how am I going to integrate this? If what I thought to be true isn't true, how do I integrate that? And how do I move forward when all of the things that I used to believe don't work for me anymore? So it can be a sense of like having to start again. And the thing that will interfere with us being able to take advantage of the benefit of starting again is being focused too heavily on the loss. So we kind of have to be willing to process how we're feeling about it and grieve, and then to kind of be able to connect with our inner strength, and prepare to rebuild, right? So it's kind of like whatever it is that's changed, you can fight it and resist it, but it'll ultimately just kind of keep you stuck in that energy, which will be tumultuous and difficult, right? So it's recognizing that even in the most destructive circumstances, there's the opportunity for transformation. And sometimes it's the most difficult and challenging experiences of our lives that transform us for the better in the biggest ways, right? So it's kind of recognizing like there's a massive opportunity for alchemy and for you to be transformed, but it's not necessarily going to be pretty or easy And there might be a lot of stuff to work through as a result. But the benefit is that you get to decide what to rebuild, and that gets to be something that makes sense for you, and that is reflective of what is important to you and what you now know based on these experiences. So it's kind of like you have to process whatever this is, whatever this challenging shake up energy that just shifts everything. You have to take the time to process that and to work through it in order to like get to that point where you can reconnect with hope and a vision for the future that makes sense to you, right? And this could also be connection to spirituality and your guides as well, because that is kind of mirrored there. And then to come up with the Eight of Swords. The Eight of Swords is all about illusions, right? And what we believe to be true is true. So, and it's interesting actually, because there are monarch butterflies all over this card, and there's a monarch butterfly here. So like I said, butterflies might be significant, maybe monarchs especially. Maybe that'll be a sign for you this month if you see butterflies, but maybe monarchs in specific. So the idea is this butterfly has already gone through this transformation, right? But it hasn't spread its wings to fly away yet because it doesn't think that it's safe. It doesn't think that it has the room to fly away and leave the cocoon because it's surrounded by these swords. But the fact is, and it very well may be afraid that it's still a caterpillar, right? So the idea is, if you believe that you're being threatened, if you believe that you're not safe, if you believe that you can't do something, you're right. Whether it's true or not, committing to that belief is going to inform your actions. And if you don't believe that something is true, you're never going to take action to prove yourself otherwise. So it's basically recognizing that we have the ability to believe things that are not true and to limit ourselves in ways that are not necessarily in our best interest, and that can very well be based on fear, right? Fear of stepping into something new. And it's kind of recognizing that your thoughts have more power than you realize. And so keeping an eye on like, what are you saying to yourself? What do you think? What do you believe, about life, about your abilities, about what you deserve? How are you perceiving this thing that has happened to you that is really shaking you up and kind of changed the way that you have to approach your life? And are they serving you, or are they making you feel unsafe? Because if you've been given this opportunity for transformation, it's like that's a gift, as much as it might be challenging. Like, people talk about butterflies, right? And how it's like, oh, such a beautiful transformation. But I read something that it's like, actually, like, it's a pretty nasty process, because the caterpillar essentially kind of like has to dissolve and form into this butterfly. So it's like, it's not some pretty, like, the end result is pretty and magical, but the process itself is not necessarily like a pretty or easy one, right? And so it's recognizing that challenge is offering you the opportunity to transform. So what are your fears about transforming? How are you keeping yourself from connecting to kind of like the next level version of yourself, stepping out of the things that aren't serving you, or that are keeping you stuck, or that are keeping you unsatisfied or unfulfilled, or inspired by fear of like being disappointed or things not working out. And is that really helping you and keeping you safe, or is it just preventing you from having the opportunity to embrace that kind of like next level, right? Because you will be rewarded for the work that you do, right? So it's kind of like, yeah, take a look at what you think about yourself and your situation, and recognize that you have the opportunity to change your mind. So if it's something that's based in fear or that's disempowering, it might be time to say like, well, what is it that I feel? What is it that truly feels right to me, that I truly want for myself? And what do I have to believe in order to get there? Because ultimately, if whatever you're believing is not real, but you make it real because you commit to believing it, then why not believe something that inspires you to connect with this hope and happiness, right? So there's just some inner work that needs to be done there in order for you to take advantage of this opportunity for transformation. And the nice thing is the highest possible outcome for this month is actually the opportunity to kind of have a new it could be starting on a new path, starting in a new direction. This Ace of Pentacles is kind of like a seed, a new opportunity to start something different, right? And pentacles are more, materially based. So it could be starting a new job. It could be starting a new like hobby. It could be entrepreneurial. It could be like an investment opportunity. Something that you're looking to like build in a more tangible way. But essentially it's like starting fresh, right? And basically the beauty is like, if you're doing this inner work and you're kind of freeing yourself from those fears and those limitations and you're ready to start building again, this Ace of Pentacles is like, what is it that you want to build? And before you plant that seed, you have to have an idea of where it is. You don't have to know all of the details about exactly what it's going to look like, but you have to be willing to kind of say like, all right, if I have an opportunity to do something new, what is most important to me? What do I want that to look like? And so it's basically saying like, you could very well come to a period where, the soil is fertile and whatever it is that you plant, the seed's going to take, right? And so with it coming up with the Hermit, it's like you might need to continue to embrace taking time for yourself, disconnecting from other people, right? And so it's like, and not just disconnecting from other people, but disconnecting from work, disconnecting from technology. If you're sensitive, anything that is like distracting or disruptive to you, and really, really just taking time to create a space that you feel comfortable and natural in. Create a space that you can enjoy and you can feel relaxed, and you can do that difficult work of just kind of tuning out everybody else and connecting to yourself. So this is like, especially if, like I was saying, you're having trouble focusing or following through or believing that you're capable of doing these more like meditative self-care type practices. It's recognizing that, kind of sitting with yourself, and like recognizing that discomfort is a big part of sitting with yourself. And it's not necessarily easy, but it helps you to kind of start working through like, who are you? What experiences have you had? What has informed your decisions to this date, and to really kind of take stock of what works for you and what doesn't. Is there anything that you've outgrown? Is there anything that maybe is hindering you instead of helping you? And then what can you let go of and what can you connect with that'll be more beneficial to you, especially if you've got this opportunity to start anew. And the more time that you spend on your own, connecting to yourself and your own inner wisdom, the more that is going to be able to inform what it is that you're going to create for yourself, right? And so this is just validation again. So we've got the same kind of imagery, but it's validation again that what's right for you is unique to you, and you're the only one that can figure that out. You're the only one that can know it. And you really need to take time to connect with yourself and believe that that's something that's real. It's not just something that you're making up, but you have to take that time for yourself in order for that clarity and wisdom to be apparent to you, right? And maybe even like having a spiritual practice. So in all, I would say it's a pretty promising month for you, Aries. There's like a lot of big energy here. So there could be something that has ended, something that is ending. Could be just, and like the other thing is, it could very much just be because we've got, oh my gosh, so many cards. Because we've got the swords and like these 5 of cups, there's like pain and disappointment and limiting beliefs, that kind of thing. It could really just be letting go of your perceptions that are not helping you. So it's like, if you want to be a more spiritual person, if you want to connect with, your destiny, if you want to start to follow your heart, or, make decisions that are better for you, it's like you have to allow yourself to connect with that, right? Okay, so your affirmations, we've got, my positive energy leaves a powerful impression on the world. And so that's it, like, the sun, right? And this has to do with anchoring that energy down. So the work that you do on yourself, the love that you have for yourself is going to radiate to everyone around you. And the more that you do that work for yourself, the more you're able to kind of share that love. And so it's not to underestimate It's not just about you. And if what you want to do is to help other people, you don't help other people by fixing their problems or doing things for them. You help other people by loving and supporting them in a healthy way. So if you can figure out how to do that for yourself, you can teach them how to do it for themselves. You lead by example. So taking time to focus on yourself and your own healing, and to get into a space where you have more of that to share with other people, that's how you're best going to help others. And then we've got sleep is a spiritual practice. So maybe you're having sleep difficulties, maybe you're not prioritizing sleep, maybe your quality of sleep isn't good, but it's just recognizing that's something that's really important for you, because that's how we kind of recuperate, regenerate, right, after a tough day, especially if you're a sensitive person. Okay. So make sure you're getting your rest. Okay, and your final oracle card, I'll just read from the book, is Time to Go. So number 45. Okay, let me just look it up in the book. We'll see if this might tie things together a little bit. Okay, 45. Let's see, time to go. So essential meanings, endings, completion, walking away from something because there's nothing else to learn or experience. Okay, and the message is, you are at the end of one journey and have not yet begun the next. This is the moment to bless your experience thus far. Take stock of what you've learned. It's time to move on to new experiences and a new way of being. There is nothing left for you to do, be, or experience in your present circumstances. Take the risk and move on, even if you need to be in transition for a time. Your destiny is calling you. And then relationship message. It's over, or at the very least, the form this relationship has taken is no longer of service to you or the other person. This is a time of letting go, of knowing that the journey has come to its conclusion, that it doesn't mean anything is lost. Although this card could speak to a breakup, drifting apart, or the end of a soul contract, it is more about release than destruction. Remember the saying, if you love something, let it go. If it comes back, it's yours. If not, it never was. Endings are always a sign of new beginnings. If you want something deeper, walk away. And then prosperity message. This message is clear. The path you've been on with your work, creative projects, and business alliances has come to an end. You will not find the success you desire by continuing with what is now in front of you. This is an auspicious sign because there is no choice that will benefit you other than risking stepping into the unknown. It is time to walk towards something new. This card also pertains to the more neutral concept of completion. You've finished your tasks and can rest assured that this ending will open up a powerful new avenue of opportunity, even better than anything you can imagine. You have done all you can. Now trust that Spirit keeps the plan moving forward. Fortune requires you to conclude this chapter of your life, and remember that when you close one door, another opens. And then protection message. Even if it appears that you've reached the end of the line and all is lost, it isn't. So this is the shadow side of this card. So if you're struggling with an ending or a sense of something being complete. So if you're struggling, even if it appears you've reached the end of the line and all is lost, it isn't. You're in a situation that will resurface again later, so consider this a break rather than an ending. Destiny is in charge here. You lose nothing and gain everything when you surrender to that fact. Your soul knows that your destiny is unfolding with perfect timing and synchronicity. Your small self has doubts, but that's natural. It doesn't have the map of your destiny, but the soul does. Spirit loves you. Trust that. And so, yeah, this is very much, so with endings, it's more about like release. So that can mean like even coming to like, so in terms of cycles, right? An ending of who you are right now, right? So it could be in a relationship. It could be a relationship is morphing. Maybe it isn't what you thought it was going to be, but it has changed into something else. And you have to release your expectations about what you thought it was in order to take advantage of what it really is meant to be for you. Same thing with your own personal development, right? So perhaps instead of holding on to a version of yourself from the past that doesn't serve you, it's like you have to kind of let go of those things you used to identify yourself by and step into a space where you're connecting with something new. So it's, yeah, definitely about surrender and release and trusting that whatever is happening is ultimately in your highest interest, and also about being able to adapt to change, and the fact that as individuals, we are always changing and growing. Our partners, our friends are always changing and growing. Our life circumstances are changing and growing, and we can't expect that things are always going to stay the same at all times. So we need to be flexible in terms of our understanding of and acceptance of ourselves as we flow through these situations, but also of other people, right? Because we can only be responsible for our own growth and development. Other people can only be responsible for theirs. And it's recognizing when we need to let go of certain concepts and certain situations, right? So however that applies to you, I'm not sure. But anyways, Aries, it's been a pleasure to read for you. I hope that you enjoyed this reading. If you did, the easiest way to support me is by liking this video on YouTube, leaving me a comment. Beyond that, if there's anyone that you can think of that might be interested in these readings, you can share my videos with them. Make sure that you head over to my channel at Bright Soul Collective Tarot and subscribe, and also sign up for notifications so you can stay up to date on new readings as they're posted. But yeah, it's been a pleasure reading for you. I hope June is good to you. It seems like it might be a very big month, so just be mindful about what you're going through and give yourself time and grace to just process. There's probably going to be a lot to work through. But yeah, and I'm very much looking forward to reading for you again next month. But in the meantime, I'm wishing you all the best.